welcome back to part two of our two-part UCL roundup on Off the Line. We are again joined by Rahul Shashikumar and Avinash Arun. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello, what's up?
Right. So moving on to Wednesday's matches, since we completed Tuesdays already, let's start off with the first match. The first match was pretty surprising actually because we saw Real Madrid get sucker punched by an almost comically depleted Shaktar team with almost, I think, 10 first team players out through illness or injury. Real were 3-0 down at the first half itself, and we all thought they managed a comeback, but for VAR, of course. And that Valverde strike was actually pretty sweet, but all being said, Real Madrid are not supposed to be down 3-0 at halftime to Shakhtar, that to Shakhtar's second team. Now, honestly, it was a thrilling football match, but something a neutral fan might like actually. But this is Real Madrid, right? Shakhtar coming to the Bernabeu or even their training ground should actually be all in a day's work. But it was far from it. So Avinash, what do you think happened in that Real Madrid game? Why did they perform so poorly?
Well, it's been a what do you say, disappointing season, disappointing start for Real Madrid. I think maybe not disappointing start. Maybe the last two games have been pretty poor, and they're facing. It's hard to gel as a team when you still have to. When Karim Benzema is still your main striker, when he's still your main outlet of goals, and when you don't have a leader. Sergio Ramos didn't play yesterday in the Shakhtar game, so you need other players to step up. And the problem is Rafa Varane has been having a shocker of a season, and he has been having one since the Manchester City game in the Champions League. And in the Shakhtar game, I think he was to blame for the first two goals. And the whole defensive shape of the team was just lost. You could see the holes in the centre backs not communicating with each other, and you could see the major holes. And Shakhtar was just putting in long balls one after the other, and they were easily getting into Real Madrid's attacking space. So the problem, I think, is mainly that they don't have even the goal scoring wise. They had to bring in Vinicius to get their second goal. It's just that the team hasn't. There was a high hope for the team to be good this year. Real Madrid were a team that were developing for the future. But when you see players like Brahim Diaz, Sergio Reguilon, and Hakimi leave the team, you raise questions about what they've done actually for the future, because these were the players that were supposed to perform for Real Madrid right now. And I think they're going to regret the decisions, and to keep playing like this, they really need to dip into the transfer market again in the winter transfer if they have to make any kind of impact in the latter stages of the Champions League.
Right. That's actually a fair point, but credit where credit is due for Shakhtar even, because Tete in the Shakhtar team actually played very well, and there were a lot of standout performances, especially against strong opposition like Real Madrid. So, Rahul, did you think that it was, Shakhtar's strength or Real Madrid's weakness that showed with that game which happened there?
See, it was a bit of both because Shakhtar obviously being without their main players, but they stuck with their pace and their strength, and which was to counter attack, and that was pretty evident because every time they had the ball, they put out some potent attacks. And as Smash mentioned, Real Madrid were pretty shaky in the first half. They couldn't, negate with the ball and get it out. And Rafael Varane again, he should be the leader when Sergio Ramos is missing. Obviously, he's a World Cup winner. He's so experienced. He should be stepping up. But as we saw since the Manchester City game, he's not been the kind of a leader that they thought that he would be. So that's also a big miss. And again, in the second half, I actually felt that they played very well. I think Zidane motivated them to almost conjure up a miraculous comeback. But again, then war again ruling out the goal. It was actually unfortunate, but still taking nothing away from Shakhtar, they did very well to hit them on the break. And every time they had the ball again, they were really, really effective.
Right. Yeah. Actually, I think Vinicius was pretty good after he came on, and I think 15 seconds on he
Yeah,
just
that's the
scored a goal.
fastest.
Yeah, so there were slight positives I could say from that, but all in all, it was a pretty bleak evening for Real Madrid fans, especially. So moving on to last season's quarterfinalists, Atalanta taking on newcomers Midtjylland, with Atalanta coming out pretty comfortable 4-0 winners. It was a comfortable night for Gasperini's men. They seem to be going from strength to strength, especially from Serie A to Champions League. So all the best for them for the rest of their games. We In the next match we had Man City coming out 3-1 winners against Porto. Now, even though the scoreline reads 3-1, the game was pretty even actually. Okay, maybe not entirely even, but there was a competition there, leaving City with a lot of room to improve. So, Rahul, what do you think this City team is lacking in terms of, I don't know, manpower, or what is it?
To be honest, City still are a good side, but somehow when you look at the team, it doesn't look as strong as how they were 2 years back. And actually, it's surprising because there's not been a lot of change. It's just been a few very experienced campaigners leaving, but you expect a Pep Guardiola team to do better. I feel that they've been trying to experiment with what's their best squad, lining up defensively, and maybe that has impacted them because you need to have a steady backline and a consistent one to make sure that you're performing on a day-to-day basis. And here, as you said, the game was pretty much in balance, and Porto scored a brilliant goal by Diaz. It was an amazing run, and I think that there's still room for improvement for City, and it's gonna take them some efforts to make sure that they don't repeat their Champions League form again.
Right. So after yesterday's match, the injuries seem to be piling up for City with I think Fernandinho who's out for 6 weeks now, and you have De Bruyne who I think was out but is fit now. But you get that uncertainty about City's team. So Avinash, how do you think that's going to affect City's Champions League run as well as their Premier League form as well?
See, we all know City has a very talented, very good squad. They have very good depth in all the positions. But yeah, these players are going to be a huge miss. It's these are first team players like De Bruyne, Kevin, Laporte, Jesus, Mendy. They're all players who have played a bunch of games for City in the past. But the main problem is, I think that the them being a good team is great, but they make a lot of individual errors, and this has been a trend for all the big teams this year. You look at Chelsea, you look at City, especially English teams. You look at Liverpool, United. You look at PSG. Any team, they make individual errors which are now being punished more and more, and you can't afford that. Football has evolved into such a high stakes thing that you cannot afford to make mistakes in a game. You make a mistake, you are punished for it, and that's what happened to City a couple of weeks ago against Leicester in the Premier League game. They made a few mistakes; they were 3 goals down, and the same thing happened to them. They actually made a few mistakes in the beginning of the Porto game. They were 1 goal down, and Kyle Walker had to make a goal line clearance. So these injuries are going to really test them, especially if these errors keep happening, because then Guardiola cannot keep rotating his team. So they really need to find a balance as soon as they can and hope that the players who are playing, and they really need people like Sterling and Aguero to keep scoring at better consistency. This is, I think, Aguero's first goal in like 200 days, including the lockdown, obviously, but still, you expect a player like Aguero to score every 2 games or something. So they really need people to step up. And one of the main problems for them this year, again, is going to be the left back position, I feel. Benjamin Mendy and Alexander Zinchenko aren't really, fully entrusted in that role by Guardiola. And we saw how Angelino played well for Leipzig. So this might come back to bite them later. Hopefully it won't, because I still think City have the talent, they have the squad to win the Premier League this year and maybe do well in the Champions League. We'll wait and see.
All in all, it was not a bad night for Guardiola and his men, though there is a lot of room for improvement. So moving on, we had Inter Milan and RB Salzburg drawing 2-2 with Mönchengladbach and Lokomotiv Moscow respectively. We also had Olympiacos and Liverpool beating Marseille and Ajax by 1-0 scorelines. Now, speaking a little bit in depth about the Liverpool game, in the past few weeks, since Liverpool stopped playing Alisson in goal because of their injury, Adrian has been bad. I don't really have any other word for it. He's been bad, and it's been okay. Let's say below par. He's been below par as a deputy for Alisson, and now that there's a very crucial injury in terms of Virgil van Dijk, and Liverpool fans are sweating at the thought of Adrian just being in goal. So, what do you think Liverpool's prospects in the title race are going to be, Rahul, in the Premier League? Of course, I know I'm getting a little bit sidetracked, but still, I think we have to address this.
Yeah, see, jumping straight into that, I feel that the injury concern to Van Dijk has actually resulted in them being a little crippled in the title race. Considering the fact that the league is wide open, you still can't predict who's gonna do what. But yeah, Virgil van Dijk is a major miss because, especially because of the fact that Liverpool play high press, and the presence of Van Dijk is very important because they know that this man can handle the pressure if the other team is to break. And he is also the reason why Trent and Robertson can push on a little further. But we'll see now that how they're going to line up. And again, coming to Adrian, yes, he's been sloppy, and you remember that it was his mistakes which led them to getting knocked out by Atletico. So, and actually, he has a good personality. You can see that he's always shouting and telling the boys where to be to soak up the pressure, but somehow is not convincing either in the air nor while handling the ball. It's a big loss because Allison, when you have Allison playing, it's it's sort of like it's he's so reliable that even if there is a one-on-one chance, you are 50% sure that he's gonna come good in that. So you have that big loss, so it definitely is gonna affect their title chance. So yeah.
Right. Another thing that we saw in that particular match was Ajax just not being clinical enough. Well, you have, Van Dijk injured, Liverpool looking vulnerable. There was this phrase that was thrown around a lot: "Strike while the iron is hot" and all that. But
Mhm.
Avinash, do you think Liverpool got a little lucky with that particular win, even because of Ajax finishing ability?
Well, you could say that, but I don't think so because I mean the true hallmark of a champion is to be able to grind out and get the 3 points even when you're not playing at your 100%. And Liverpool managed to do that. I think though Liverpool they started off pretty slow. They were pretty shaky in the beginning. They had to get time. They had to get used to the fact that they didn't have Van Dijk. They had Fabinho playing centre back. They had Adrian keeping. That maybe took a little bit of time, but as the game went by, when you could see James Milner keep running back and defending. I think he covered the most kilometers in that game. For a player he's 35 years old and he's the one he's running his socks off in the whole game. And maybe the attacking could have been better, but this was what they wanted. They wanted to start off their Champions League campaign with 3 points, and they managed to do it. And also credit to Klopp. He actually rotated his team very well. It might have been risky. It could have gone absolutely different. It could have been a completely different scenario. We could have been talking about another Aston Villa game if I may. But Klopp actually took off all three, Firmino, Salah, and Mane off at the same time within 60 minutes. So it was a very risky move, but they managed to get the 3 points, and I think they'll be happy with that going forward in the season. And this Van Dijk injury also helped people notice the emergence of Fabinho as a centre back, which is good news for them going forward because Van Dijk is going to miss probably the whole season, and they instead of dipping into the market right now, they can just look at their own players and make sure that they can still go for the title in the Premier League.
Right. So yeah, like Avinash mentioned, getting the 3 points is important, and Ajax away is always a tricky game. But yeah, so I think Liverpool did a decent job, at least well enough to get that 3 points. But moving to the next match, which is undoubtedly the most entertaining game to watch of the night, at least in my opinion. It was Bayern Munich absolutely dismantling Atletico Madrid 4-0. What a performance from Bayern. It doesn't look like they just stopped playing from last season. That the ruthless German efficiency was on full display. But, it was partly Atleti's fault as well, because they were pretty slow and sluggish from the start with Suarez. And, Suarez was expected to run up against David Alaba, which is just crazy from Simeone. I don't know what he was thinking. But my question is to Avinash. How good was that Bayern midfield yesterday? Even though they lost a pretty key cog in that midfield in Thiago to Liverpool, it still kept ticking by someone who is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated players in world football, Joshua Kimmich.
Oh yes, the Bayern team. Even when Thiago left for Liverpool, I did not think they actually downgraded or anything. If anything, with Sane coming in, I actually thought they got a bit of an upgrade. I thought now they would be better moving forward, and that's been the case. They scored, I think, what in the last 8 games they scored 29 goals. Only the aberration at Hoffenheim, excluding that, everything else has gone according to plan for them this year. And Joshua Kimmich is an absolute sensation. He can play anywhere. He can play in defense. He can play, as a wing back. He can play in the center of midfield. And to have players like this, and to have players like Leon Goretzka, and even a player who I do not rate at all, Corentin Tolisso, who I do not really like. I do not enjoy watching him play. But to see him perform well was actually, somewhat nice. And, he scored a very good goal. And they scored a couple of screamers as well. And this whole team is just gelling well, even without players like Gnabry and Sane starting for them. And you could see that they just want to keep going forward, keep scoring goals. They just want to keep playing football. And that's the mentality Hansi Flick has instilled in that team. And I think they might actually be just the second team after Real Madrid to lift the Champions League for 2 years in a row. I think they're going to win the league anyways. There's no doubt about it. Now, I think Champions League is the only thing they need to look forward to, and they might just be able to do it.
So my next question is to you, Rahul. Do you think it's fair to say that this Bayern team is the best in the world at the moment, and the competition is not even close?
Yeah, it's pretty safe to say that they're the best team in the world, isn't it? Because the kind of football that they're playing, it's actually funny after a point, because you could see the Atletico midfield and the defense, and they were just looking at each other, going like, "What do we do next?" Because they were too good, and everyone on the ball very comfortable. It was actually like the main point is the team chemistry. The team chemistry is so good that you spring a ball, that the other person is going to be on the end of it. And it's a lot of good work done by Hansi Flick. And just to add to that, you got a feel for Suarez, man. He's conceded 12 goals from Bayern in the span of these couple of months, and it must be really really terrible for him. But yeah, on the whole, it was a pretty comfortable win for Bayern Munich. I thought that Atletico would give them a decent competition, only because that they have a solid defensive setup, but they actually nailed it. And special mention to Kingsley Coman, who was again spectacular, and that second goal from him was nothing less than world class.
Yeah, you're right. I think Suarez might just be sick at the sight of Bayern right now. But you have to remember that this Bayern squad is still without Leroy Sané and Serge Gnabry, right? Which is actually saying something.
And Choupo-Moting.
I know he played. But okay, the point is, I don't know if this Bayern team is the best in the world at the moment. That there will always be a debate about that. But I can say that this Bayern team is the best run football club in the world. They were, Bayern was supposed to be a team in transition. Okay, they just changed coaches and lost two of the most senior-most players in Arjen Robben and Frank Ribery. And 1 year on, the rebuild is done. I know teams who've been rebuilding for 7 years now, and and Bayern took 1 year, and that's actually a testament to the recruitment policy and the vision, and that's something other clubs can definitely learn from. But pushing on, looking at the other party in this match, which is just pitiful. I mentioned before, Atleti just didn't look like the usual self. They were slow. They were defensively shaky, and for Atletico hasn't been the best at their best for a pretty long time now, maybe even since last year. So Avinash, do you think that could be due to the loss of some players? What do you think it could be because of?
Yeah, I think the sale of a couple of major players for them is going to be a very big factor for them this year, especially because, like you said, they haven't actually. You've known Atletico to be the bad boys of football for, I think, for the past 7 8 years, and for the last 2 years, you haven't felt that Atletico Madrid playing. You in the beginning you had players like Godin, just fighting for the ball all the time, and now you do not feel that kind of urge from the Atletico players. And now they've sold two. I think they've sold two very good players in Morata and Tom Partey. Maybe they've gotten Suarez in, but if Tom Partey had played yesterday for an Atletico Madrid midfield, they would have done better. But because they didn't have that vital central defensive midfielder, they actually lost, and that is going to define the season now because they've not started off well. Their forward line has been pretty blunt. They've actually had two goalless draws in the La Liga already, and their season is going to be defined by what it's always going to be defined by how many clean sheets they keep, how they manage to grind out results that we know. But now they need to get some more creativity in. You have players like Joao Felix, who's supposed to be, the next big thing in football. He was sold for 100+ million. He was the highest paid teenager in the world, and he hasn't really made a mark. And now you have Suarez in. Now you need you need these players to perform. That's about it. They've tried to transition into a more attacking based team, and now's the right time for these players to step up and perform. Or else, I don't think Atletico Madrid might progress very well this year.
Yeah, and I also think that Diego Simeone needs to take a hard look at this team that he's managing right now. Maybe take some time and decide what he wants to move, how he wants to move on from this point. After that 4-0 defeat. Again, this is just much more than a win for Bayern. This is actually a statement of intent, and it is a statement that said, "I'm not giving up that trophy now." And God save any team who stands in their way. So, actually, on that note, I think it's time to end this episode. This is actually a new format that we tried, that whole two-part thing, and we hope you enjoyed it. If you like this episode and you want to, listen to more football talk, consider subscribing to the channel, and make sure you leave a comment letting us know what you want us to talk about. Also, don't forget to follow us on our social media handles on Instagram and Twitter as well. The links will be given in the description below. So, thank you and cheers.